baby, probably. Good morning, Glenn. That was a lot slower than I anticipated.
Good morning. I hear you got an abrupt awakening this morning.
I did. But you know what? Things happen, right? And I love doing the Reefer Reporters or this news broadcast, because when I lose track, and I get busy with life and stuff like that, and you get you get a skewed vision almost, and you forget what's going on in the world as far as news and events and activities and that sort of thing goes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm happy to be filling in today. I'm not sure who I'm filling in for. Am I filling in for Cindy or Al?
You're filling in for Cindy because she lost power this morning. So yes,
that's right. And I wonder, I wonder if that's because of a storm. Like, you guys aren't in the, you're both on the East Coast, but you're not in the same.
No, she's in Nova Scotia. I'm in New Brunswick.
Right. Okay.
She's about 6 hours, I guess, or somewhere around there, 5 or 6 hours away from me.
Oh, fair enough. My grandmother was from Campbellford, New Brunswick.
Well, I lived near Campbellford, Ontario, till I moved here. And actually, I'm going back to Campbellford, Ontario for a couple of weeks in December.
Really? Very nice. Yep. Well, hey, if you're going to be up this way, maybe we'll be able to connect and do tea or something.
Sounds good to me. Sounds good to me.
All right. So today's stories are, I haven't even had a chance to glance over them, Glenn. I do apologize. It's that whole open your eyes, wash your face, run a wagon wheel through your hair, and get on camera.
Well, you're here. That's all that counts, right?
That's right. Fair enough. All right. And I guess I really should be watching the time today. I have a tendency, especially with Reefer Reporters, because I get totally engaged in that which is being said. So I'm going to set me up a nice little alarm for today to make sure that we break when we're supposed to, and that we end the show when we're supposed to. So look at that, me all organized. Should we get on with our stories, Glenn?
Sure.
All right, let me just pull one or two up here, and there we go. We're beginning this week with something from Mugglehead magazine, and Greenway expands growing space to quadruple its output.
An Ontario-based cannabis producer, Greenway Cannabis Corporation, has expanded its cultivation space by 132,000 square feet, which will quadruple its production output. The company announced the news on Wednesday, and the facility build-out will enable it to produce approximately 24,000 kilograms of cannabis, allowing Greenway to increase its profit margins significantly.
Well, Greenway also announced that it's applied to trade on the OTCQB exchange, which is similar to the NASDAQ, to seek out more investors from the U.S. Now, the company's greenhouse now spans a total of 167,000 square feet, and the cannabis producer hopes its application to the OTCQB will be successful. The company will be trading under the ticker symbol GWAYF. Following approval,
the company generated approximately $1.3 million in revenue during the second quarter this year, an increase of 9% compared to 2022. The company stock increased by 1.12% today to 0.45 on the Canadian Securities Exchange. Our team is proud to be able to say we have finished our full 132,000 square foot expansion on time and on budget. As a leadership team, we promised shareholders we could do it, and we have fulfilled that promise, said Jamie D'Alimont, who's the CEO of Greenway.
The expansion allows us to quadruple our output to 24,000 kilograms, moving Greenway another step down the pathway to significant profitability. The company says an application to Health Canada to amend the license square footage will be submitted in the near future. Expanding our potential investor base into the U.S. should provide more coverage and more trading volume, says Greenway CFO Darren Peddle in reference to the OTCQB application. So this is quite interesting. Look at that, the beautiful picture of their greenhouse. Now, they're increasing 132,000 square feet to produce significantly more cannabis. I'm not even familiar with this producer. Do they package under a different label, I wonder? Because
I'm not quite sure, but I still find it astounding that most producers are cutting their space and they're increasing their space at the same time. It's kind of a funny thing. We keep reading stories about everybody having too much space. They're not profitable because they're too big.
And these guys are starting to grow. Isn't it interesting? And you know that it could be it could just simply be that a lot of original companies came out and they threw everything at everything, build it and they will come. And 300 people built a baseball park. Well, there's only so many people to play baseball. So overdoing it in the beginning to try and capture the largest market share may be the reason why a lot of these other companies are having to close down or cut back, or they just way overdid it in the beginning. And these guys might have come in a little bit, and I'm only guessing here theoretically, but they may have come in modestly and taken those couple of steps and say, hey, you know what? We're ready to grow now.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah.
We'll keep an eye on them and see what happens in the near future. Next up,
nice to see someone's making some money.
Yeah, yeah. And then that's the other thing too, is you got to wonder where that money's coming from, right?
Yeah.
If especially if they're declaring losses on their bottom end.
I'm sure there's a lot of that going on.
Oh, you can bet your bottom on it. Yeah, for sure. It's just it's the nature of the beast, and it's the nature of an industry in which there's a lot of opportunity to pad your pockets, whether you do that legally or illegally. It's opportunistic, right?
It is.
Yeah. Okay. So next we're going to the French Toast, the most trusted name in cannabis. Really? I didn't know that.
Oh, I'm on StratCan.
You're on StratCan. Okay.
Yeah, farmgate comes to BC.
Oh, I'm not sure. Is this our ad for, or being conscious about what you're doing? Is this our lung?
No, I'm on StratCan, which is it says cannabis farmgate comes to BC. I can move over to the Fresh Toast.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I just got rid of Farmgate. Didn't we just finish that story?
No, we haven't started that one.
I deleted it.
Well, that's okay. We can move on to the Fresh Toast.
Okay.
No problem. We're on Fresh Toast.
My apologies. We'll get to that story after the break when I pull it back up.
That's what happens. That's what happens when you wake up 2 minutes before the show, right? You can't help that. It's like a Monday morning, right?
It is. It is. Oh, good Lord. Okay, here we go. How to keep your lungs healthy and happy as a marijuana toker. I hate the word marijuana, but the Americans use it so liberally, right?
Yeah, I try to change it, but sometimes I don't catch myself in time.
Yeah.
Being conscious about what it is you're doing can go a long way to mitigating lasting damage. And you certainly don't need to hold big monster hits to get higher. This is the second article they're going to write to highlight some of the more undesirable effects of smoking cannabis. Before the lynch mob comes for me, I'm writing this while smoking a joint with literal tar dripping from the edge. Nonetheless, I believe that willful ignorance is idiotic, and one must be ruthlessly honest about one's own behavior. The fact of the matter is that smoking any substance has a negative impact on human physiology.
Absolutely, it really does.
Mhm.
Over the past week or so, according to this writer, I've been seeing more headlines about a small study that looked at cannabis smokers, tobacco smokers, and non-smokers CT scans to see if they could visibly see their effects using substance on one substance over the other on the lungs.
Yeah.
You can spot a smoker by merely looking at CT scans, and so the researchers wanted to see what the effects of cannabis were.
The study
Doctors.
co-author, who's Dr. Giselle Riva, a cardiothoracic radiologist and assistant professor at the University of Ottawa in Canada, said it's possible to see that someone is a heavy or long-time cigarette smoker just by looking at their CT scan. She wondered if cannabis, the second most commonly smoked substance after tobacco, would show similar results. She was surprised to find little information existed. For this study, the researchers compared chest CT results from 56 cannabis smokers, including some who also used tobacco, and 33 who smoked only tobacco, and 57 non smokers. Roughly 75% of the cannabis smokers had emphysema, compared to 67% of the tobacco only smokers and 5% of the non smokers. Wow.
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me at all. Hopefully it says it in this article. If it does not, I will bring up a tidbit of information. But additionally, there are some men who had enlarged breast tissue within the cannabis group. Of course, we don't know how many men are within the small sample group. While the sample size of the study was very small, I can very much imagine that chronically, smoking weed will have some detrimental effects on the lungs. While lung cancer isn't very prevalent in cannabis smokers, it does make sense that there would be damage to the sacs in the lungs. Okay, so he actually has a working theory here. This is a very in-depth, long article. He has a lot of information, and I'm really glad that this particular author has taken a look at this. I think one of the key things he's going to get to here is that burnt cannabis material produces almost or slightly more than double the amount of tar that burnt tobacco does.
Yeah.
So that tar is that gunky, sticky crap that sticks to your walls, it sticks to your teeth, that sticks to your and so it's obviously sticking to your lungs, to the bronchial passages. You know, he says here in his article, don't inhale so deeply. When you're smoking weed to get high, you don't have to inhale a full long smoke. You simply need to know how to inhale diaphragmatically. And that's just basically deep breathing. Just swallow your smoke, get it into you, and get it right back out. As long as those terpenes and cannabinoids can hit the bloodstream, and they can do that even just being held in your mouth through that artery that's just below the tongue that goes directly to the heart, which means it gets into your bloodstream like that.
I don't hold mine in at all. It's in and out. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. It seems to work fine for me.
Yeah, the odd time I'm a tobacco smoker as well, unfortunately, and hopefully that'll change in the very near future. But as a tobacco smoker, the odd time I'll grab the joint and I'll spark it up and I start to smoke it like a cigarette, realize what I'm doing, whoa, and have to put it out. And now I really do love my vaporizer. Notably, smoking cannabis will produce different physiological responses, such as challenges, respiratory challenges. Smoking, you're going to get that burnt cannabis material into your lungs and can cause a problem. Alternatively, vaping, all you're putting into your lungs is the cannabinoids and the terpenes and the flavonoids and all the good stuff for you. Absolutely no burnt plant material, which means no tar buildup. So vape, and vape.
Unless, of course, you're like me and I turn my vape up just a little bit higher than it probably should be. And I get that little tiny bit of smoke in there.
Okay. What do you normally vape at?
Well, anywhere from 265 up.
From 265 up?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Then, yeah, you're really not vaping high enough. What you might want to do is start vaping.
I go up way over 300 sometimes, but it's too much smoke for me.
Oh, okay, perfect. The optimal temperature to release THC and most other cannabinoids from the plant is around 347 degrees Fahrenheit. So I like to bring my vaporizer. I have the volcano vaporizer. I think you can see
Yeah.
it back there on my shelf. It's and I like to have it around 386. And I find that's a really nice medium. I get a little bit of smoke, like a little bit of that I can feel it. It's
Yeah.
not quite such a vapor. And at the very same time I get to I get all the cannabinoids without burning them off or flash evaporating them, which is really, really kind of cool, as you can imagine.
I think I have the same vape as you.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. It's a great machine, isn't it? It's
It
so
is.
worth the investment. So absolutely worth
It,
the investment.
it's
I have
it's robust.
yes, exactly. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, or if you've tried any other herbs, but in an effort to quit smoking and to cleanse my lungs, I started using mullein. And I don't like to smoke mullein, but I love to vape it. So quite
So what?
often I'll
I don't
throw
know
it
what
in.
mullein is.
Oh, mullein is that little plant that grows on the ground. It used to be called cowboy tobacco back in 300 years ago or 100 years ago. But it's just a wild plant that grows all over Ontario, and I believe it's in on the East Coast as well. It's
Wow.
look it up as a plant. It's got a very broad leaf, and it grows straight up, like almost looking like tobacco, like a tobacco plant. Kind of grows the exact same, but it's good for a lot of different things, and
Wow.
it is a really good tobacco replacement. In addition to that, it's good for cleansing the lungs and getting any impacted materials and things like that phlegm and all that. It brings all of that up and out.
Nice.
Yes.
Wow.
I had a client a number of years ago. She has long since passed, but a number of years ago, she had chronic COPD issues. She could not give up her cigarette smoking. So we worked at getting her a vaporizer, got her one, and then I started turning her on to the mullein at that point in time. And so she began vaping with that. She reduced her cigarette smoking from 4 packs a day down to less than half a pack,
Wow.
and lived an extra 4.5 years on borrowed time past her due death date. So
Wow.
yeah. So and I would honestly say that most of those 4.5 years were pretty pleasant. I mean, I'm sure she had a few days where she said, "Oh, good Lord, take me," right, because of the pain and stuff. But on the up and up, she got an extra 4.5 years and enjoyed the mullein.
Awesome. Wow.
Yeah,
That's my learning thing for today.
there you go. All righty. Shall we go on to our next story, Glenn?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Let's see what we've got. So next we should have also from the French Toast
Yes.
that cannabis affects us differently as we age.
Yes, it does. With seniors becoming a crucial part of the retail market, it seems high time we understood the different ways cannabis impacts us as we age. If you use cannabis regularly or have casually enjoyed it for many years, you may have noticed that it affects you differently today than it did 5, 10, or even 20 years ago. A lot of this change may have to do with the factors like tolerance, the cannabis itself, or even life experience. After all, we once get used to substances, it doesn't quite feel the same as it once did, and it takes more of the substance to feel the similar effects. But there could be something else contributing to this change you feel. Your age might be one of the reasons that cannabis affects you differently today than it did when you were younger. Mhm.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
there's a whole scientific background to this. And because I deal with a lot of seniors, I've learned this. I'm glad articles are coming out. Cannabis use has increased significantly in the older demographics in the last several years. And according to a 2020 study that was published by JAMA Network, cannabis use in the prior year among people over 65 had jumped 75% in just
Wow.
3 years, which is amazing. So by 2019, the use had reached had reached 5%. And with this study increase in older folks getting high, it's really important, pertinent than ever to understand if and how cannabis use affects people based on different ages. Um, I'm gonna gloss over some of the fluff because there's, some fluff words in here.
Yeah.
But basically, scientists are uncovering some very interesting findings. As I said, I've read some of these studies. This 2021 study that is in this article is an excellent study to review. And this is the one. For one, there is memory and mental capacity to consider, of course, with seniors. So you might think that as we get older, cannabis might mess with our memory and cognition more than it once did. After all, as we age, our minds aren't exactly what they used to be. But this might not be the case when it comes to cannabis. It's not. You got to read that study. Okay. Are the acute effects of THC different in aging adults? The results in previous reports actually differ from what you might think.
And consistent with some reports in the preclinical literature, the findings suggest that older adults may be less sensitive to the effects of THC on cognitive and affective measures. In other words, older users tend to keep their wits about them just fine, if not better, than younger adults. In the end, their findings suggest that THC has an adverse impact on aspects of cognition in younger adults, that young adults are more susceptible to phenotypes of the THC dependence. When it comes to cannabis and age, the curious results are not limited to just seniors and more seasoned cannabis users. There's also some studies that compare mature adult usage to adolescent cannabis usage. According to a 2019 study that examined age-related differences regarding cannabis use, adolescents showed a slightly more resilient memory than older users. Human adolescents exhibited less impairment in memory post-intoxication than adults, according to the study.
Yeah. Okay. Now, while the younger users may have had less impairment, they found that younger users tended to crave cannabis more. Craving and inhibitory control may not decrease as much after cannabis intoxication in adolescents compared to adults. So and basically what that's saying is kids go, ooh, I like it. I want more. Give me more. Give me more. Give me more. Yeah. I mean, isn't that childhood, for lack of a better? And I realize we're talking about young adults here, but I mean, isn't that your 20s? How many of us couldn't stop at that one extra drink? Oh no, you had to have the one that knocked you on your ass, right?
That's right. That's right.
And I think it's the same with cannabis. And so they're saying that the studies are showing the same to be true here. Now, more research.
It's the same as everything else. Adults have a little more control.
Absolutely. And there was something that was mentioned earlier about the phenotypes, about dependence on THC. I really want to note, because it is coming to the forefront, and this is becoming an issue, that there is an addiction to cannabis. I want to point out that this addiction is a behavioral addiction, much like gambling, for example. There's no chemical or substance addiction. It is a behavioral cognitive addiction. And let's face it, who doesn't want to just go, oh, I feel good, and stay in a zoned out position, right? It's not.
But I found the same thing with cigarettes when I smoked. Now it's been 40 years since I smoked, but when I did smoke, it was more holding the cigarette was a lot to do with it. Always having the cigarette, when I didn't have that cigarette, I wanted that cigarette in my hand.
Yes,
right? And I know it was also chemical, but that holding that cigarette was a big part of it for me. I wound up with pencils and pens and all kinds of stuff after, I
was just going to say, I have a girlfriend that quit about 30 years ago, and God bless her. She has had that same package of Players Light in her freezer for approximately 30 years.
Wow.
And for the first year, possibly even two, she would constantly have that cigarette in her hand. She never ever lit it, but it was there, and she'd put it back in the pack and put it away. And when she was home, she'd put it in the freezer. She'd take it out. She'd hold that cigarette for the day. And, I got my cigarette. I'm good to go do whatever she's got to do. Finally, she gave up the cigarette. I guess at some point in time over that year, she put down the cigarette and never picked it up again. And the package was in the freezer. It's still there, for the record. And she's always now got a pen in her hand, a pen or a comb with one of those tails on it, but she's always got something in her hand. And that's the behavioral. Tobacco is a little bit different than cannabis, again, because there's a whole bunch of chemical addictions in addition to the behavioral and cognitive substance. So interestingly here, I'm going to read the next part of this article because this is what I was getting to. It's really cool. We've got to take a look at cannabis with seniors. If you're at all interested, how cannabis affects the brain and how it removes the plaquing that causes us causes that is kind of a catalyst to conditions like Alzheimer's or dementia or Korsakoff, all those mental deteriorating diseases. Cannabis is known as to help alleviate the catalyst who brings on those conditions. Really got to study it. The cannabis and brain. It's just, there's phenomenal studies out there. While younger users have had less impairment and found that younger users tended to crave cannabis more, we just read that. They also noted that the trends were very noticeable among very heavy and dependent users as well.
Yeah.
There's a lot more research that's required to uncover the concrete evidence within these trends. Cannabis affects everybody differently. Users' age is a not often researched segment, but clearly significant variable when it comes to THC and how we react to it.
Yeah. And now more than ever, this type of research is important. After all, more and more seniors and adults in general are reaching for cannabis instead of other substances. Even retailers are getting in on the trend. More retailers offer dispensary discounts of 10 to 20% on Silver Sundays or Senior Appreciation Days, according to the New York Times. With seniors becoming a crucial part of the retail market, it seems high time we understood the different ways cannabis impacts as we age.
Yeah.
It's true. It's different with me than it was when I was younger, of course.
Well, it's certainly different with me. I never consumed when I was younger. I only, in the last 20 years, and it was a direct result of an illness that I even entertained the idea of using such a crazy substance, right?
Horrible people that use that substance.
Right. Well, I wasn't against the people using it. I just thought they were dumbasses, to be honest.
Yeah.
A lot of my friends used cannabis, and the names I used to call them, a few years later was called myself. So, but I have noticed. So I have one person that I started working with about 10 years ago, who at that time was in her 50s. She is now, of course, in her 60s, and she's just about to move into her 70s. And we have changed in that 10 years. We have changed her ideal cannabinoid profile several times. And it's just because her body has changed. It's gone through that really transitional time, much like just like we do during our teen years or into puberty, into adulthood. We go through those chemical biophysiological changes. The same thing's happening when we go into our senior years. And so as we age into our senior years, it's important to take a look at everything you're doing, from your diet, your exercise, your medicine, and your recreational vices. Really consider how they're affecting you now, because your entire chemistry has changed. Or is changing.
True.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? That was my note. Sorry?
We're halfway through.
Yes, and that was my notification that it's time for a break. So what do you say we bounce over to a message from our sponsors, and when we return, we will get back to the next 4 stories, which we have some psychedelic stuff. I'm going to let you do most of the talking on that, because I really don't know very much about psychedelics at all.
Well, we're both in the same boat, because Cindy's the expert on that, not me.
Okay, so we can ask a whole lot of questions together. What if? Okay, very cool. Let's get to a message from our sponsors. We'll be back in 2 and 2.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
When you think of the number of unique products developed in the fields, kitchens, and labs at Legacy 420, it's hard to think that one stands out above the rest. But tell that to the thousands of people who have tried this amazing breakthrough product.
This is our Sacred Salve. This is actually our extra strength. It comes in 5 different strengths. It's all natural, all organic. It typically works within 10 to 15 minutes of putting it on. It's good for arthritis, it's good for inflammation, any kind of pain. We're very proud of it.
Sacred Salve, so easy to apply, along with soothing relief. To select a strength that's right for you, come in and talk to your trusted partner. Legacy 420 out on your road.
Pace Radio Network, by patients, for patients, and for those who want to know.
Did you know that the Pace Radio Network isn't just a radio network? That's right, because most, but not all of our programming is now done via video and is then podcasted at paceradio.net. So if you want to watch, yes, watch our programming, you'll find us on the Pace Radio Network's Facebook page, plus the show's own page, and you'll find us live on the network's YouTube channel. And don't forget, you can find it all, video and audio, at paceradio.net.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Let's share Pace everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education. You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And we're back.
You are.
How you doing? How was that for a medicated break?
That was fast.
That was, right?
Days.
I think we're going to have to talk to Al and get him to make those commercials just a little bit longer so we can get that full puff in there. But
I got to run upstairs and outside.
Oh, no, that's no good. Nah, I just open up my office window here. Make sure that the door is sealed and we're good to go from there.
Well, I technically don't own this house anymore, so I can't do anything in here.
Oh, that's right. You're in the middle of a big move. You just sold your place, and what a beautiful place it is. Now, do you know where you're moving to?
We're going to be in Ontario for 2 weeks, and then we're going to Costa Rica till May 31st.
Oh, okay. Well, I am a bit of a contortionist. I swear, I can squish up to I can fit in a pillowcase. If I can,
You're about the third person to say that. The same thing. Al wants to go in the suitcase too.
Well, he's not. We're both not going to fit, so he's got to get his own.
We're going to be there for 5 months, I believe. So you can come down anytime you want. If you want to pay for your flight down there, you got a place to stay.
Oh, beautiful. Well, thank you very kindly. You know what? I may take you up on that. Costa Rica is someplace I would love to see.
It's a beautiful place, and it's very safe compared to most of the third world countries there.
I've heard some very good, much better things than some of the other countries I've heard about. All right. That's awesome. Well, thank you. Okay, let's get back to, somehow I lost sharing our screen. So let me just get that back up, share that. And I always forget this little button over here. I've got multiple screens going on. So if it looks like I'm not looking at you, I might actually be looking at you, but the camera's over here. All right. There we go. Ganjapreneur. These guys are one of my favorite places to go and just get that quick hit of info. What's happening, right?
Yep.
I love this picture. I love it. All right. Canada appoints experts for cannabis legalization law review.
Canada has appointed a panel of experts, including doctors, academics, and lawyers, to conduct its first ever statutory review of the country's cannabis legalization law. There's no people here that aren't like academics. Canada's government has formally appointed a panel of doctors, academics, and lawyers to conduct its first ever statutory review of the country's 2018 Cannabis Act, which federally legalized cannabis for adults, the Canadian Press reports. The legislative review is coming more than a year later than expected and aims to investigate the health effects of legal cannabis on Canadian citizens and analyze the effects of legalization on Canada's economy and unregulated cannabis market, which has thrived despite the reforms. Of course it has.
Yeah. Okay. So I have 101 issues with this. I'm really holding my breath as we read this so that I don't overindulge my own opinion here. I'm just going to read the article. The panel headed by
There's no advocates here at all. That's what bugs me. No advocates.
No, there is no advocates at all. And the fact that this entire review is I mean, it's agenda driven. There's even their review experts. When we look at their panel, it's headed by former foreign deputy minister of justice and deputy attorney general of Canada, Maurice Rosenberg. Okay, additionally, totally against cannabis. Dr. Oyedeji Ayanrinde, psychiatry and psychology at Queen's University, an associate professor. I'd be curious to know what kind of a skewed perspective he or she may be coming in with. Dr. Patricia Conrad, a clinical psychologist and professor at the University of Montreal's Department of Psychiatry and Addiction, I happen to know is very against any cannabis consumption. So again, this is going to be a very biased review. Linda Levesque is a criminal lawyer and member of Fisher River Cree Nation in Manitoba Treaty of the 5 Territories. I think she's a very balanced, respectable academic, capable of speaking to the thing. Dr. Peter Selby, Vice Chair of Research and Head of Department of Family and Community Division of Mental Health and Addiction. Don't know him. As soon as I see mental health and addiction, though, the very first thing that comes to mind is, it's a drug! And I hear, and it's like, oh, for God's sakes, there are so many people who got off of opiates, who have released themselves and taken back their lives from alcohol addiction or from opiate addiction, all in the name of and with the support of cannabis. Now, cannabis as a vice, as a recreational tool, absolutely, it can be misused. Is it going to kill you? Absolutely not. I mean, the worst that's going to happen is you might get fat because you do too many munchies. But I mean, it's non-lethal. The human body cannot smoke enough to kill us. We cannot eat enough to kill us. And I'm talking normal cannabis here. I'm not talking, so when I see a panel like this of experts put together to review, I get very discouraged, and it's like, I just want to go, I don't even care. I don't want to pay attention to it. Like I'm just so annoyed with the negativity and the misinformation that is being delivered to audiences and when I see articles like this is one of them where I just want to now ask me how I really feel.
Well, we would never know. We would never know with the way you speak. I'll tell you one thing I find funny is they're calling this a panel of experts, but they seem to be not experts in cannabis, not a one of them. So I don't know where they're getting their expert opinion. Yeah, they might be a psychiatrist, but they're not a cannabis expert. So there's no advocate on here. There's no, I don't even see a positive voice other than maybe the First Nations lawyer, and I'm not sure about her.
Right.
So, I can't really speak to anything positive of the group they've assembled to speak on cannabis legislation. Doesn't make sense to me. Like, at least to have a 50-50 split, or even have a couple people that are pro-cannabis on there.
Sure. I mean, you've brought on 3 doctors here. Three of these doctors are mental health, psychiatry, and psychology. Okay, the 3 doctors. That's where they are. What about the doctors of endocannabinoid system? What about the researchers that have studied this intensively? Dr. Ethan Russo, amazing studies and research, and we're talking 30 years of compiled information on patients. I mean, he is a leading expert. Dr. Ethan Russo, Dr. I don't know why none of the other ones are coming to my brain.
It
But
still seems to me to be about control rather than
Absolutely.
the reality. And that's a problem, for me anyway.
And no, you're absolutely right. Even when we took a look at, I believe it was the beginning of November, something had come out saying, we're going to be reviewing, it's late, but we're going to review the Cannabis Act. And we'd like your opinion on it. Well, as you're reading through it, somewhere's down around the middle, slipped into a subsection of a subsection, it says very casually, and so now with the legalization, should we just do away with the medical program? Are you fucking kidding me? Okay, first of all, we don't know how Canada criminalized cannabis in the first place, other than the fact that it was pushed through legislation on a bill that wasn't even addressed, because we have no valid, this is why we did it, this is the person who made the decision. We don't have that in Canada. No one's really sure, which means it was written on a piece of paper, passed through on a bill like this bill coming in. And people are going to get to that point halfway through, just before their lunch break, going, oh yeah, and do we want to just, now that we got the retail market going as strong as we do we want to get rid of that medical program? Because it is costing us $17 billion a year to support our patients. Yeah, get rid of it. Boom, boom, stamp, conversation over. Let's cut for lunch and we'll be back later. That's what's happening in Parliament right now. And thank God for advocates like us, like the people like Jack Lloyd, like the people like Dana Larson, like the people like, I mean, those are the first names that roll off my tongue because I just finished doing some research on them. But there's a whole bunch of other people out there. And thank God they're out there, because they're catching this stuff and saying, whoa. Government, step back a minute. What do you mean do away with the medical? We can't do away with the medical. Could you imagine, as a parent with a child that has epileptic seizures, going into your corner store and saying to this 20-year-old behind the counter, so my 3-year-old daughter has been suffering from epileptic seizures for the last 3 years, and we've had her on this strain and this strain. What would you recommend? First of all, putting that bud tender into that position, my God, I would not want to be that bud tender, first off. Second to that, but at 20 years old, we're all cocky and we know it all. Oh yeah, you should be using. So, I mean, shit's gonna happen, and it's not gonna be pretty if they do away with this medical program. That's just one minor case. Imagine being somebody. My grandfather's 98 years old. Now, I happen to be very skilled in knowing what strains to use for what pains, and I can certainly help my grandfather. But if I wasn't, and my grandfather said to me, hey, Irene, give me some of that weed you got going on there. Can you get me some of that cannabis? I don't need a prescription for it. I just want you to go to the store and get me some for this cancer that I'm dealing with. He's got an open gash on his head.
Yeah.
I go to the store, I get him something. What if it's the wrong strain? And instead of helping him rest and relax, all of a sudden, there's my 98-year-old grandfather trying to do the Texas two-step jig because I got him sativa or something, right? And not to mention the interactions with medications and that sort of thing. So again, if you're using cannabis therapeutically, you really have to work with a cannabis consultant who knows the strain, knows how it works with the endocannabinoid system. And I'm saying this because if they do away with the medical program, we are going, us consultants are going to be in demand, and there's going to be a very serious need for us. I am watching them play. I am watching our government play with this Cannabis Reform Act in ways that are very, very frightening. It's not the only thing they're tackling. They're also going after, if you look at Bill 36, they're going after our healthcare professionals. They're going after the College of Physicians and Surgeons, giving them way more authority than they have any right to have. I have so totally and completely once again gone off track. But when it comes to, and I do apologize, but when it comes to the Cannabis Act, when it comes to the cannabis law reform, my friends, please, I beg of you, get this from your government, read it, highlight it, do whatever you have to remind yourself that you are Canadian and that you are a free Canadian and you have liberties and you have rights, that you have the right and liberty and freedom to stand up for. You need these on your walls. We need to remember who we are as Canadians and stop playing this passive role, allowing our governments to make these kinds of decisions for us. Look at that panel. As you said, oh, I'm sorry, Glenn, you got me riled up again. But, yeah, it's a horrible panel. These are all people who are against cannabis. There's no expertise when it comes to understanding the value and the benefits that can be gleaned from this plant. Not to mention the economic diversity, the potential that's there. There's nobody on there from any economic perspective. It's all about looking at everything from a very skewed perspective, as always. And I find that very, very disturbing. We need to move on. I'm so sorry. The bottom line is the Cannabis Act took effect on October 2018. Canada was only the second nation in the world to pass federal adult use of cannabis reforms after Uruguay. We thought it was going to be wonderful. And instead, we've ended up with Soma on every corner and a brave new world while we're sitting back getting high, Trudeau's walking away with Canada in his pocket and turning us into a communist state.
I love that Brave New World reference.
I love Brave New World.
So do I. It's one of my favorite books.
It is my apps. If I've read it once, I've read it 100 times for sure.
I bet you I'm in there about 10 times myself.
Yeah. Did you know that George Orwell was actually a student of Aldous Huxley, which is where 1984 came from? He read his professor's paper in his professor's book, Brave New World, and went, no, I don't see it happening that way. It's going to be like this. The military is going to come in and Big Brother's going to take charge. And, but I just thought that was so fascinating. So curious little tidbit of information there. Yeah.
Learning new stuff everywhere here today.
Yeah, it's an informative morning and a passion-filled one, too. When it comes to the Cannabis Act reform and our government trying to make changes, slipping things under the rug, slipping them through because they think they can. I get very, very, very agitated by that. And this is what I need to help me, apparently. Everybody keeps telling me it's time to microdose. All right. Psychedelic mushrooms set to change Jamaican tourism in coming years. Oh, gosh. You know what? There's another new reason to go to Jamaica.
I love Jamaica, but I never felt safe off the reserve there, off of your resort.
Oh, you know what? Fair enough. It has been, honestly, one of my fears of going to Jamaica.
It's a great country, but stay on the resort is my advice.
Okay.
Jamaican tourism is expected to change massively with the growing interest of psychedelic mushroom tourism that is already present in the country. The Caribbean island itself has seen a new group of resorts promoting magic mushroom tourism. In many parts of Europe and the US, mushrooms containing the psychoactive compound psilocybin are illegal. Jamaica is a country that hasn't made these types of psychedelic mushrooms illegal. Currently, Jamaica is cultivating investors with hopes to grow its psychedelic industry, according to Reuters. And estimates prove that the psychedelic mushroom industry could amount to an $8 billion globally by 2028. With the growing popularity, it seems Jamaica is jumping on the trend quite early on.
Wow, that's wonderful, right?
Yeah.
How cool is that? So, okay, currently there are around 4 psychedelic mushroom retreats in Jamaica. These each opened in recent years as the government warmed to this newer form of tourism. This has also helped the government remain open to private investors. At Michael Meditations, a psychedelic retreat in Treasure Beach, which grows its own mushrooms, guests pay as much as $23,500. Wow. Holy shit, I'm thinking this is really cool. And you know what? I just changed my mind.
Holy smokes, man. That's expensive.
Yeah, wow. $23,500 for a week for a mystical, unique experience. Justin Townsend, CEO of Michael Meditations, mentioned that at least 50% of visitors describe having a mystical experience and notice a reduction in stress. In an interview, Gabriel Heron, the agency's vice president of marketing, commented on the opportunity to embrace this tourism in Jamaica. How we position this particular tourism experience will more than likely be aligned with the health and wellness industry.
Well, I like that approach.
Yeah, I do too. I think their pricing leaves a whole lot to be desired. You know, yeah, if that was 2,350, honey, I'm in. I'm booking my trip tomorrow. Right. But 23,000, holy shit, that's half of a down payment for a house.
We're taking me, my wife, a child, 2 dogs for 5 months in Costa Rica. We're not going to spend near that.
There you go. See, so yeah, that's just ridiculous, outrageous pricing. I mean, I don't know what you're getting for 23,000, but it better be a lot.
You better be cured of everything.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's get us moving on here. How are we doing for time? Very good. All right, moving on. Don't allow. Okay, Silo Wellness pushes for psychedelic retreats in rural Jackson County before the December deadline.
And beginning in January 2023, the therapeutic use of psilocybin, the psychedelic compound in magic mushrooms, will be legal in the state of Oregon. But in some areas like Jackson County, the legal use of psilocybin may be limited to urban areas. For businesses like Silo Wellness, this limitation could impact their plans for growth. Silo Wellness is Oregon's only publicly traded psychedelics company. Partnering with the New Frontier Ranch just east of Ashland, Silo recently announced big plans for a new retreat center in rural Jackson County. The ranch is a massive 968-acre property with the potential to house hundreds of guests in a quiet, natural setting. That's nice.
Oh, so here we go again. Another one of those retreats, eh? In November of 2020, a slim majority of Jackson County voted in favor of the therapeutic use of psilocybin, with 51.19% of the votes cast in favor of Measure 109. So I guess that's what it's called, is Measure 109. When the next election rolled around in November of 2022, Jackson County voters were asked to consider a ballot measure that would prohibit the establishment of therapeutic psilocybin centers in some areas of the county. 52.7% of Jackson County voters voted no, meaning that the voters did not establish location prohibitions on psilocybin treatment centers in Jackson County.
Yet there are still potential roadblocks for companies looking to establish therapeutic psilocybin centers in rural areas of Jackson County, Oregon. On November 2nd, the Jackson County Planning Commission proposed an amendment to the Jackson County Land Development Ordinance. This amendment, if accepted, would limit all psilocybin service centers to general commercial zoning districts. But that's not what the voters asked for. According to a statement made by Silo Wellness CEO Mike Arnold to Yahoo Finance, a quick review of the Jackson County zoning map shows that only unincorporated properties that would be available for psilocybin service centers are within the urban growth boundary abutting city limits or near I-5. Jackson County is effectively attempting to outlaw psychedelic nature retreats without a public vote, even though it sounds like they already voted.
They did vote. And this is what I'm saying about what our governments are doing right now. They have we have afforded them too much power. I mean, we forgot that these people that are in power work for us. They are your employees. Treat them with respect. Treat them with the consideration they deserve for their skills that they have in working for you and doing what they do for you. But when they fuck up, you call it to attention and you become that boss on the front stage saying, excuse me, but you had a job to do. Now, in this particular case, and this is common stateside, some renegade rogue politician gets it in their head that this is the way it's going to be, and democracy flies straight out the window. Who gives a shit what you said? Yeah, go ahead, vote. I don't give a fuck what the vote is. This is very, very unfortunate. And it is something, again, we've got to quit being so complacent as tax-paying citizens. I don't care if you're Canadian or American at that point. You need to stop being complacent. Your government works for you. You have put these people in place. Make sure they're doing the job that they're expected to do. Like, I don't know, listen to your damn vote.
Why do that when they get elected the next time again?
Well, yeah, I mean, they can get away with it, so they don't really care. So other than for purposes of, pretending that they give a crap.
Yeah.
All right, so this is a pretty long one. The next step in determining whether Oregon will legalize psilocybin treatment centers in rural Jackson County will occur on November 30th. So that is happening yesterday. Then the Jackson County Commissioners will meet to discuss the potential amendments and come to a decision before the deadline in December. So it's December. If anybody's interested, go and find out. They had that meeting yesterday.
Yeah.
All right.
So we're on to our last one.
We're on our last story. And I'm just looking at this. Psychedelic. I read it wrong. I thought it said psychedelic trip because I'm a speed reader. So I had to do a double take on it. Psychedelic partnership. Thought it was a psychedelic trip to test psilocybin. So there's a partnership to test psilocybin for FXS in first phase 2 clinical trial. Well, what is FXS? I'm really confused.
We're going to find out.
I just found it.
Psychedelics Biotech.
Yep.
Novo Mentis Life Science Corp and Wellbeing Digital Scientists, a subsidiary of KGK Sciences, have submitted the first ever phase 2A clinical trial application to test safety and efficacy of oral microdose of proprietary psilocybin NM1001 for cognitive and behavioral symptoms associated with Fragile X syndrome. That's what FXX is, to help Canada. The FXS is the leading genetic cause of autism spectrum disorder. Nice. Nova is applying to commence the phase 2 study via its partner and contract research organization, KGK, while recently completing the production of its CGMP synthetic psilocybin 1.5 milligram microdose capsules to be used in the trial. So it's synthetic. I've never heard of this before.
Yeah, and you know what? It's drawn something to my attention. Do you remember when they came out with Marinol and Naminol, which were the synthetic versions of THC? My friends, be careful out there. You're trying to perfect something that the universe itself has already created, and they are trying to duplicate it. So things are going to be missing, or there's going to be overcompensations, and there's going to be trouble with this. Au natural is the way to go. Seriously, green and clean all the way. So just moving on with the article, Nova Scientific Advisory Board Chairman Dr. Marvin Hausman explained that the company's drug development plan is to initially establish the therapeutic potential of repetitive low-dose psilocybin to adults with FXS to improve behavioral and cognitive symptoms. This scares me. I don't know. I do. I get scared of situations like this, right? Just because I see deaths coming. He says that they are confident that KGK's extensive experience in high-quality clinical research trials and expert regulatory support in the space will enable them to continue to make considerable progress towards successful treatment of ASD and FXS. Currently unmet medical needs. On behalf of Wellbeing KGK, CEO Guthrie agreed that it is an exciting time for both partners and further added, over the past 25 years, we have successfully helped hundreds of companies with custom designed clinical trials and claim substantiation strategies that move products efficiently into the global markets. So in other words, you're really good at pushing shit out there, whether you like it or not.
I wonder.
I don't know that I'm going to give you a pat on the back for it. Sorry?
Did they try to do it naturally first, or did they just try to synthesize it because it's cheaper? Or they own it. If they synthesize it, they own it.
That's what they did. It's their own proprietary psilocybin.
Yeah, so this is the thing. They made their own drug instead of using the natural drug because they can't own that drug.
That's right. That's right. How crazy is that? I'm pulling us back onto the screen here, and there you are. Hi, I can see you now.
Hello.
Yeah, no, that's awful. That's sad. Unfortunately,
We had a
Glenn,
couple
our
good
time
stories
is
and a couple bad ones at the end.
yeah, and that's it for our time today. We are actually out of time. And so we're going to sign off here. I'm Green Irene, filling in for Reverend Cindy Howell.
And I'm Glenn. Peace.
And Glenn, peace out, everybody. Have a great week. See you here next week, Monday, with Al and Glenn, right?
No, I'm on Thursdays with Cindy.
Oh, so who's here on Monday? I guess it's Al and Kelly on Monday.
Kelly, yes, Alan Kelly.
Yes. Tune in again for more Reefer Reports on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time with Reverend Kelly Green and Al Graham sharing more news. And they may not be as opinionated as me. On that note, thank you so much for asking me to join you today, Glenn. I much appreciate it. And we'll be back again. Ciao for now.
I like your opinion, so there you go.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20 is so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partner 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420 enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net.
Oh.